Hello, everyone, and welcome to TAG Tech Talks. I'm Larry Williams, President and CEO of TAG, and I'm pleased to bring you another edition of this podcast featuring our technology community's best and brightest leaders. This podcast is all about showcasing what makes Georgia the number one place to do business and bringing stories of how our technology community is benefiting our local technology community and making a global impact. Today, I have with us Brian Benn. Brian is the Chief Information Officer and Senior Vice President of the Atlanta Housing Authority. Brian is responsible for the development and implementation of technology strategies. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you, Larry. Good to be here.
Good to see you. So, Brian, tell us about your role at the Atlanta Housing Authority and give us a little bit about your career journey and how that got you where you are today.
Okay. Well, as you said, I'm the CIO, Chief Information Officer, and an SVP here, and I've managed the security of the agency and all our technology projects, not just internally, but we're also focused on strategies that align with and try to help our 55,000 participants. My journey started out of school. I worked for NASA, so that was very exciting, kind of catapulted my career. And then I also had a foray with some of the big five, Accenture. I was always also with Cisco and did some consulting and got into an IT leadership role there. I did some DoD, also Department of Defense, but from the government side, beside NASA and DoD, I kind of got into municipal government with DeKalb County, and that kind of opened my eyes, and that kind of interested me when this opportunity came up a few years ago as director before I moved into the CIO role here at the Housing Authority. So that was kind of my first foray into municipal government, if you will.
Well, it's a varied career that you have that really develops that great sense of value because of all the different aspects. If I think about what you're saying, consulting, NASA, you and I have talked before, you were very much a part of satellite missions, microgravity work. I mean, this is exciting things. So tell us a little bit more about how those experiences all came together and inform how you approach your job today.
Well, one thing I learned at NASA, working at NASA, is the stakes are high, and there's not much room for mistake because, of course, lives are at stake. There are also the timelines. The timelines don't move too much. When these senators or these timelines are hard and fast, you've got to deliver. So you've got to deliver, and you've got to make sure that you're taking into consideration the lives at stake and not just exploration that you're doing, but who you're sending up on these shuttle missions and what have you. And so it's very exciting work. And what it did help me with is to realize that, hey, if I can operate in that high pressure environment, then anything else like that should be kind of easy peasy. So starting off my career in that type of establishment, that type of environment definitely helped me in less stressful environments and being able to adapt and pivot in stressful situations.
Well, local government definitely has its own gravitational pull, so I'm sure you're cashing in on all those experiences as well. And I know that you actually give some analogies to some of the satellite work that you did, your current work today. So we'll probably touch on that. Talk about how are you building diversity, equity, and inclusion to drive innovation with the community, with the technology community in your current job today?
Okay, well, one of the things we've always understood is that education was the great equalizer. But as we come into this 21st century, what we also understand is that technology is part and parcel to that as being in terms of being a great equalizer. So it's not just education, but it's technology. And this was especially heightened during this pandemic when we've seen so many people and so many offerings having to be given virtually, whether it's a school, whether it's having to visit your docs or any of these visits, we having to do things virtually now. So to level that playing field, we want to make sure that we have devices for our participants. We want to make sure that they have access in terms of the Wi-Fi, and then we want to make sure that their training is there, whether we're talking about the rudimentary training for our younger set who's already kind of technologically savvy anyway, or even our older generation who sometimes are just kind of afraid, and those are some of the barriers to entry. So we want to make sure that all those three prongs are in place in terms of using technology to help level the playing field along with education.
That's great. Appreciate that. That is a much broader perspective than your job is to provide a roof over people's head. It's a much broader
Right.
perspective and what really, gives people life. And so I really applaud you for that. And with that, what is, describe the overarching strategy of the Atlanta Housing Authority and talk about your role and as you see it as the CIO in that strategy.
Well, the overarching strategy of the organization as a whole, just in a nutshell, is to provide not just low income or affordable housing, but to provide quality affordable housing. So as CIO, our leadership team, we see technology, as we spoke about, should be a part of that quality affordable housing, whether there should be smart homes, whether again there should be Wi-Fi, whether there should be devices, whether that means we partner with ISPs to help subsidize and try to provide Wi-Fi to some of our eligible participants, again, to kind of level that playing field. So we don't just want to offer that quality affordable housing, but we want to make sure the technology is part of that quality, affordable housing experience, the same way my kids or your kids or any of these or any of us, these things we take for granted.
Right. And it's devices as well, as you mentioned before. One of your great programs is Access, about
Right.
bridging the digital divide in your product, broadband access, computers, and training to your customers. We call the people that you're helping house customers. And then those partnerships. Dig in a little bit more on that Access program and the impact that you're making there.
Okay, so it's called Access, and it's a play on Wi-Fi access, if you will, but it stands for Achieving Connectivity to Create Equity and Self-Sufficiency. And then it goes back to again, making sure that we have the hardware in hand, making sure that we have that connectivity. But what we're really excited about is the training component, that third prong, because this goes into a real robust cohort program we're establishing now. We're partnering with TechBridge, we're partnering with Accelerate Atlanta from Microsoft, and we're trying to make sure that that cohort program allows us to bring some of our participants into the workforce, into the workplace. So we're doing some workforce development, and we're also excited about what TAG is doing from the workforce development side, and excited about partnering with them as well. So we're definitely excited about the entire three-prong approach, but definitely that third prong where that training goes as far as a cohort program and that workforce placement. And again, we have those supportive services that we want, those wraparound services that we want to make sure that they're in place so that when our participants get in these jobs, they're upwardly mobile, they understand conflict resolution, and they're able to be sustainable and to be, again, upwardly mobile in these positions.
Yeah, this is life changing, and it does provide great career paths for people. They can, start, and then they can start. I think one thing that we found is that whenever we can actually map it out and show them the future, then okay, this isn't a dead end job. This isn't just something.
Right.
I've got growth potential. So that's
Right.
wonderful. Hey, let's look at your organization, sort of a little bit more inward focused. But I think, like every organization, AHA is going through a digital transformation. We hear that
Right.
a lot. I know that your focus is people, processes, technology, and you are specific about the order. So tell us about that and how you approach that.
Absolutely. So digital transformation is such a broad term. Sometimes it's trite and overused, and it can
Yep.
mean several different things in several different shops. So we've tried to simplify it. And again, going back to that people, processes, and technology. Sometimes we put the cart before the horse, and we try to throw technology at an issue. If we just sit there and we understand what our resources, our people, that human capital, what they're doing, what they're working on, are there processes that they're working on that are repeatable? So if someone gets, no one say hit by a bus, hit by the lottery, and decides to leave, can somebody step in? Are these processes repeatable? Are they documented? Once we understand that, then we can start to say, hey, technology would be a good solution here. Here's where we can utilize technology to help with these people and these processes, and to make sure that we're able to automate these things, make them repeatable. And the big thing also is we understand that this hinges on data. A true digital transformation effort hinges on data. So we want to make sure we corral our data. We reduce the number of disparate sources. We have that central repository, that single source of the truth. And we want to set up our entire workforce from our executives all the way down to the lowest level employee to make those data-driven decisions. And so that's where we're headed in terms of people, process, and technology, and then to that full maturity where we can make data-driven decisions.
That's phenomenal. And I know you're a big data guy and making those data-driven decisions. And, being a great steward of public funds, it's extremely important that you do that. Talk about how you're utilizing that within AHA. Again, you're not just thinking about a roof over people's head. You've really been thinking about career paths, but also how do you connect people with other services and eventually get off government programs? How does technology help you with this?
Absolutely. So part of that access initiative, and what we're talking about is we talk about self-sufficiency, because we want to make sure that our participants are self-sufficient and are able to graduate from those programs. So we're trying to utilize data. And again, we're talking about data-driven decisions. So we can determine, hey, when these wraparound services are in place, when these different dynamics are in place, this is when we have a higher success rate in terms of graduating our participants or getting them to that stage of self-sufficiency. Even if it's something as simple as looking at a geographic location, we may say, hey, this geographic location here, we have a better rate of success or better rate of graduating our participants. So what is it in this geographic location? Is it the charter schools? Is it the Barnes and Nobles? Is it the lower crime rate in this area? So we can start to look at these things geographically and demographically and just make sure that we're setting our participants up for success and making sure we're giving them the best opportunity to be self-sufficient and graduate from these programs. So that's how we're trying to use data and data science and even predictive analytics to get better at what we do.
And that really does provide the connective points to all of the other partners in the ecosystem that have, similar broad goals, and everybody has different roles and responsibilities and how to get there. I think that's phenomenal. So tell me, you articulate it very well. Tell me about the link between launching satellites, and the Atlanta Housing Authority's technology initiative.
Okay, well, great. Well, so I came up with NASA. And the big thing about those satellites was those satellites would look outward. They would look outwardly. I got an offer leaving NASA when I came to Atlanta to work for the Weather Channel. The Weather Channel, the big difference in those satellites, they're robust, they're big, but they look inwardly. They have to tell us the weather, what it's going to look like, and they use those satellites to help predict the weather. So when I got here, I told my leadership team, I was like, hey, I want to do both, and I want our satellites to look outwardly and inwardly. I want to make sure that we're focusing on the strategies and technologies here to make sure that our workforce is effective and efficient, but I want to make sure we have an intentionality about looking outwardly and going after our participants and making sure that we're setting them up for success and making sure that this digital transformation that we're going through internally extends externally to our participants as well. And that's what we've been really intentional about. Our leadership team is excited about it. My leadership team, our IT leadership team is very excited. And our extended leadership team, our SLT here at the Housing Authorities, is excited about this approach to make sure that that digital transformation not just takes place internally, but also impacts and positively affects our participants as well.
What an inspirational way to bring in space exploration and NASA to really get people rallied around your concept. I just think that's phenomenal, and I love it every time you tell that story. Well, Brian, now's the time of the program where I ask you to look into your crystal ball.
Okay.
Talk to us about how the Atlanta Housing Authority's work can impact the technology community and extend the innovation throughout the state.
Well, one thing that you've shown us, Larry, is you've definitely gone beyond with TAG. You've gone beyond our metro Atlanta area, and you've really had an impact, not just statewide, but even nationally. So that's impressive. And I think that with us being one of the flagship housing authorities in the nation, and definitely the largest here in Georgia, I think it's incumbent upon us to take our successes and make sure they extend, whether that's the Savannah Housing Authority, the Macon Housing Authority, and even around here. And that's, again, part of us looking outwardly and making sure we're not so myopic. And I think, though, sometimes we also underestimate that when we take these ideas and we propagate them and share them, there's a lot of value that comes back to us, and it kind of goes both ways. So we're also learning from, we're not, immune to learning from some of these smaller housing authorities. And I think we have a lot of exciting ideas that we can share beyond the metro area, and it's all for a positive outcome.
Well, let's do that summit of housing authority technologists. Let's do it. I'm ready.
Absolutely. Let's get it going.
Great. Well, Brian, thank you so much. And thank you for everyone who's listening. Thank you for joining this edition of TAG Tech Talks. Brian Benn, thank you for joining me today. It's always a pleasure to spend time with you. I always learn a lot. I'm Larry Williams, and you can find more of our TAG Tech Talks at tagonline.org.